So we're now on our journey. This is where we turned off to the hospital yesterday, and then we had truck trouble a little bit further. So this is now today the rest of the way to Kyamulibwa. And I thought everybody would appreciate this pineapple delivery system.
Yeah.
You'd be amazed at the creativity that people use in loading up a motorcycle. Side road for Kyamulibwa. Last time I was here, they were rebuilding this whole section of the highway. They're almost finished now.
It's going to Zimbabwe district, Kabamba Barracks.
Farther along.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they did this whole drainage ditch on the side that's new.
Yeah.
You have to be even braver to drive on this road now.
Yes.
the way they make that ditch so deep. But in the rainy season, these roads get very, very slick and muddy.
Yes.
So to handle the water and get it off of the road really makes a big difference. So they definitely have road building projects as sort of part of the infrastructure programs. And most of the counties here do have a development program. So when we drill our wells, we go to the county development officer and we make sure that it fits with the plan, where they've actually sort of figured out where things need to be to serve the most people. So we try to coordinate with the government of Uganda as much as we can so that our plans work together with theirs.
Hospital. Hospital.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, nice big new cell tower too.
And the Vida hospitals.
Oh, that's where we just were, across the way there. I see. Very cool. Such a nice view.
Farm.
Oh, okay.
Like a cow,
right.
goat.
It's a farm to the left where they raise cattle.
Yeah.
Which is why the grass seems also nicely trimmed.
Yeah.
And along the side here are more bananas. And you'll also see sometimes mixed in the bananas with the coffee plants. Or also cassava, which is these other plants that you're seeing along the road here. So this is coffee right here. Banana. And this is a little cassava growing in the front there. And cassava, if people aren't familiar with it, is a very starchy root. But it's like a sustenance food, so you can actually dig it right up and eat it straight out of the ground. And it's, it's a little chewier than a potato, but if you're hungry and starving, it's definitely a survival food. And it seems to grow pretty readily. And on the side you see here, this is one of the ant hills. That pile of dirt, that was actually made by ants, not somebody leaving that pile of dirt. Oh. Thanks. The little goat, oh, he disappeared. things that's really amazing to me about Africa is the incredible diversity. There's just a lot of genetic diversity. So you see all sorts of different plants and all sorts of different birds. And I know from reading some scientific studies that there's more human diversity genetically in Africa than anywhere else in the world, which I guess makes sense since we originated from Africa. The offices of the sub-county. Bananas here are called matoke, and it's a wonderful, wonderful food, and it's been one of the main staple crops of the Kingdom of Buganda for forever, huh?
Yeah.
There that are called fire ants, and they bite you, and it's like someone took a hot poker and stabbed you with it. Yeah, they'll climb up your legs and bite you, and ooh, it's a religious experience. They can be intense. And these are passion flower fruits that are raised in these awnings with a netting, and the netting gives the roots or the vines of the passion flower something to grow on, so that it grows off of the ground, and that keeps the fruits.
Bananas, coffee.
Yeah, and here's a couple coffee plants there in between the bananas. You may notice as we go by that a lot of the houses are built out of brick. And the bricks are made out of adobe, pretty much like we do it in New Mexico, except here they have 2 rainy seasons a year. And so the more modern method is to make piles of the blocks and to bake them by putting a fire that'll smolder away for a couple days, when they bake the bricks. And sometimes you'll see these big piles, and it looks like a sort of a stacked up tower, but it's actually got bricks stacked all the way through it. And they'll plaster the outside so that when you start a fire in the bottom, the heat and the smoke all rises up through the stack, and then eventually it cures all those bricks and they become rock hard. So we're going down off of one of the ridges now, and we're in the low swamp area in between. And we do this a few times before we get to Kyamulibwa. I think we've already done it a couple times, gone down and up. So we're about part of the way there already. Here's a pretty amazing tree coming up on the left side. this is a soccer field for one of the schools. And the last times I came here, there were 3 or 4 different cows that were very studiously trimming the grass for good soccer playing. This is a boarding school here.
Yeah. Yam.
Okay, yeah. Here they're planted yams,
Yams.
which I haven't seen quite as many of. I have seen sweet potatoes, but they look a little different down in the wet. Yeah. Oh, nice. And that's corn there. There's a lot, which they call maize here, and there's a lot of maize grown, which is pretty much a staple food, like it was in Mexico for so long. Stacks of bricks that was getting cooked. I guess it wasn't on fire, but it's stacked up getting ready. From our trip on the road here, transportation is a real challenge for people, and it is one of the limiting factors in productivity over the whole area. And that's something also that is affecting SCOW, because to do any of our work for the boys or the staff to go and visit places or to assist people, they have to get there somehow. So one of our regular expenses is paying motorcycle drivers, which they call boda, as I mentioned before, or a driver with a car to actually go and bring people around to do the projects. And so one of the things on our list eventually is to get a vehicle that would be able to do that. Here they're actually maybe taking the bricks apart now, or no, they're stacking them up still. And since I was here last time, we've actually started 2 new programs for the youth to actually be able to learn and make money. And one of them is to make bricks, and the other one is they started a rabbit farm operation. And because of the proclivity for rabbits to reproduce, they've already gotten several times the rabbits they started with. So that's a good example of sort of like vocational training for the kids that didn't get a chance to go to school. You know, if they learn some vocational training, then they still have a way to make a living. And so that's also part of the program. one of the plans for this trip is I have an app on the phone to get GPS locations. So what I'd like to do is to be able to do a Google Earth that has all the different things that we've done and their locations on the map. The orphanage, all the wells, all the primary schools, and all the different things we've done. So hopefully we'll get that done this trip. This is the district office for the Kolungu, the whole Kolungu district. And this is where, when I first came, this is where I met the security officer, and we explained the projects, and he was the one that recommended the Garden Courts Hotel, and he did his best to facilitate us as much as he could, for which we were very thankful. Town was on the ridge, and now we're coming back down again. Here's one of the schools.
Yeah.
That tree, if you notice that with the big fruit hanging off it, that's a jackfruit?
Yeah.
Yep. And what's the Lugunda name for that?
For what?
For that fruit? For that fruit?
Jackfruit to the fene.
Frene?
Fene in Uganda. Fene.
Fene. Okay. I still haven't tasted jackfruit.
Yeah.
So that's on my list for this visit.
Hey.
Just to taste it. As I never tried yet.
This sweet.
Yeah, is it?
It's a bit sweet.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we'll make a sampling jackfruit video.
Yeah, okay.
So there's another tower of bricks. And you see it had a plaster. You can see the holes at the bottom that they've closed up where the fire was burning. Are the more modern way to build a house, but the old way was what in New Mexico we might call jacal or jacal, depending on your pronunciation, where you have a framework of sticks and then mud that's just placed over it, that's not baked or hardened in any way. In the old days in Europe, they would call that wattle and daub, and that every so often here we'll go by, we'll try to see if there's some houses like that. Now most of the houses you see are, oh, there's one right across the street.
The body house.
Where you can see the house with the grass roof is the old traditional way, and the metal roof and the bricks, that's the new, more modern way. That was convenient. And of course, you might have noticed that we're all driving on the left side of the road. That's because Uganda was a British protectorate since 1862. And then they got their independence from England in 1962. So they were a protectorate of the UK for 100 years. And when Uganda got its independence, the Kingdom of Buganda got its independence first, and then the next day, all the rest of Uganda got their independence. Did I understand that correctly? Yeah. And when they did that, it was the king of Buganda, because the Baganda tribe are the most populous in Uganda. It was the king of Buganda who was made the president of Uganda. And then there were a lot of other political changes that happened then, starting in 1962 and going all the way till the early 1980s.
Kabaka Chwa.
That was Kabaka Chwa.
Kabaka Chwa. Mutesa 1, like Mutesa 2, and this one.
The current Mutebi. And so the first one, Chwa,
yeah,
he was when the British came. And then, was that Manga who was next?
Yes.
Yeah. And then after Manga was Mutesa. And after Mutesa was Mutebi. Yes. And so those are the Kabakas that have ruled the Buganda kingdom since 1862. And there's quite an interesting history, and the traditions that operate around the Kabaka and the kingship are very, very interesting. And there's a museum in the hotel that maybe we'll get a chance to go there, and we'll make a video, and we can see some of the charts that explain the history and the timeline and kind of how we got to where we are today in Uganda.
This one's the maize.
Oh, and there's the corn they're drying. They'll spread a tarp out and then let the corn dry.
You see, this one the maize.
Yep, and there's the cornfield that came out of. With a
in Uganda,
with a cassava in there in between.
And in Uganda, kasoli.
Asole.
Kasoli.
Kasoli.
Yeah.
Is maize.
Maize.
Kasoli. Okay, that's very good to know. And you'll often see, as you go along on the country roads here, goats tied up on the side of the road, or here coming up, it looks like we have some cows. In Uganda, they have the most amazing cows. They have these horns that just have the most incredible, graceful lines. And they're so enormous, you have to imagine that it's an incredible weight for them to carry around the whole time. But they are often tied up by the side of the road to just graze the side of the highways or the country roads. And here we are again down in the lowland area where the water is right there.
You see here the big snake.
Oh, big snakes live here. And some of the snakes in Uganda are pretty serious snakes, right? And some of them are pretty poisonous. But you can also see the quality of the water here. And a lot of the places, the people are still drinking out of water holes. And it's not much different than, and here we can see those styling horns. What graceful lines.
The cow going to put in the water.
And some of the reeds that have been cut, probably for making mats or things like that.
It's going to the farm.
It all just grows right here. Familiar cattails. We have those in the United States.
Hello? Hello?
Kyamulibwa Hill?
It's going to Kyamulibwa village.
This one up next.
No.
No, one more?
One more.
Okay. So we have one more up and down before we get to Kyamulibwa.
Yeah.
So just waiting.
It's going to hospital.
Oh, okay.
No transport.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things that Scout does try to provide. If somebody's sort of out in the hills and they need transportation to a hospital or one of the clinics for medical treatment, to be able to arrange that also. So that's kind of on the list with the necessity of the vehicles. I do remember that. Yeah. when I drove through here, one of the first times, they saw me, and one of the ladies shouted, "Muzungu, Muzungu," and then she made a hand gesture about my beard.
Yes.
I guess they don't get a lot of Muzungus around these parts.
This one, the single one.
Oh, that was a mill to grind the corn. Yeah, to make the maize flour.
They are one for village.
Oh, for everybody. There's only one of those. That is one of the things on the list that they said they could use more of, is these mills to mill maize. And there's also another machine that the coffee growers need. When the coffee bean is ripe, it's actually a cherry. And you need to take that cherry, the meat of the cherry, off of the coffee bean inside of it, or else it'll start to rot. And so when you have a bunch of ripe cherries, if you don't have a way to take that off, then you pretty much have to sell it right away to somebody who can either, usually they come with a truck and they transport it to a coffee mill somewhere. And so that means that the farmer is then really at the mercy of any of these middlemen guys who come and collect the coffee and bring it to the mills. So if we could arrange, and they're not super expensive or super complicated for the importance that they are for the whole process. So that's also on the list of things to support the farmers. But of course, the way we do things is step by step.
Yes.
So we kind of have to unfold it as it happens. So here's the next one. I remember there's a water hole down here somewhere where I would see the kids come and fill up their water jugs. Season seems hotter than the wet season, because during the rainy season the moisture coming seems to cool things down a lot more. So in June it's actually cooler than it is in February, which is curious. And we didn't stop this time, but we'll stop on the way back maybe to Kampala, at the place where we cross the equator. And they actually have one of these little things set up where you can drop a coin and it rolls one way, and then you walk 30 feet across the equator to the other way, and you drop it in, and it spirals down the opposite way, which is kind of curious too. They're taking it apart now that it's been broken, or baked rather, and they tear it down and cart it off to wherever they're going to sell the bricks to. There's another one.